if I also kind of put myself back in like maybe like quite a few years ago, right? I really wished I had known these tips, because if you go on YouTube, if you go online and you look for how to get started with singing, you get a lot of amazing advice in the form of maybe like mum 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 mum, like do these kind of scales, right? And I think that's cool and all. But I want to kind of take a step back, because some of you guys are even before that, right? Which is you've just completely started. And so I wanted to share a couple of tips on that. So very, very first tip, I think when you're first starting off with singing, the most important thing you actually want to do is don't worry about the scales, don't worry about your mixed voice, don't worry about singing the high notes yet, right? Yet. Because I think what's probably going to be more important is, can you find a spot for you to practice? Because if you want to get better at singing, singing is something that is more of like a long-term game. You have to be in it, right? I've been going at this for some time. My coach has been going at it for some time. So you can't really just be coming in, expect to practice for a week and be like, yes, I'm done, happy days, right? But there's a big hurdle there, because a lot of you out there probably are living potentially with your family. Maybe you're in an apartment and you don't want to be too loud, right, for your neighbors or like your family members. And so you have to find a spot for yourself to practice in. One of my personal favorites is, if you have a family car, having a car to practice in has done so many wonders. I used to have practice sessions at 5:30 a.m. So I just wake up because I just want to make sure it was the first thing I had done, right? And you would not believe the amount of soundproofing you get in a car. And so if you have a family car, by far, please go and practice there. You get so much soundproofing. I even have a lot of students or clients that take lesson over in the car, actually, because it's going to be very, very soundproof, and then you're also away from people who might hear you. Tip number 2, actually, and this is very, very interesting for me, because when I first started getting into singing, I was very obsessed with doing exercises, because I don't know if any of you have done this, right? But there are a lot of singing programs out there, and they used to, they used to come in the form of like CDs, right? Like, so CDs, which you just plug into your car, and you would have you would have all these bunch of exercises and scales. Like, for example, they might get you to hum, those kind of sounds, right? And like, I think they were really funny looking back onto it. But there'll be all these different exercises out there, and a lot of them actually have a really amazing intention behind them. So props to the guys who have created those courses. But the thing I want to caveat is, when you are first getting into singing, there are no magical exercises. And what I mean by that is, there isn't a magic exercise that will transform your voice and make you sound amazing. And I know that's a bit of a bummer. But it is true. I think there are some really good exercises if done right, and if you know exactly how to do them, they will take your voice to the next level. But there's a little step you have to take before that, which is, you need to figure out, when you're first starting to sing, what exactly are you good at already, and what exactly do you need to work on. And all that, to be honest, could take is maybe just sitting down with a couple of songs and just singing through them and noticing what you like. Maybe you should probably record yourself, right? What you like and what you find troublesome. Like, maybe it's the high notes, maybe it is the pitch, maybe you're not singing on the right pitches. What is it exactly that you need to work on? Because once you can figure that out, that's when you can go, okay, well, I'm struggling with some of my high notes. I'm struggling with maybe getting to my mixed voice. Don't worry if some of you guys haven't heard that term yet. Maybe if you're struggling with that, right, then you can go, okay, well, what exercises can I actually do to solve that problem, right? Because fixing the high notes might be very different to kind of improving your pitch. They can be very totally different things. And so I'm not a big fan of just throwing you a bunch of exercises and going, hey, just do this for the next couple of years and you'll get better, right? I think it can happen if you're very kind of self-aware, you're constantly kind of trying to get better. But I think there's also a benefit to going, okay, well, what exactly do I need to focus on, right? Just getting that clarity. And that, frankly, is where a lot of teachers can really help out, right? So if you haven't worked with a voice teacher, frankly, that's actually the process that a lot of voice teachers will do. They'll sit you down and they'll listen to your voice and they'll just analyze and observe, like, what is this singer doing, right? Maybe they are lacking a bit of support. They're not engaging the body correctly. Maybe they're opening their mouth too much, right? What exactly are they doing? And then from there, they can then create like a little game plan and go, hey, this is what we need to do. We want to kind of work with these exercises, then try get this into a song. That's the little process that a teacher does. They're almost like a little kind of vocal detective. That's what I call myself, vocal detective, not a voice teacher. But this is frankly how you get better. You're constantly investigating with your own voice, figuring out what is that next step? What am I struggling with? And what is that next step for your voice? And so there is no magical exercise. So I don't know if that's a tip or maybe it's a bit of like a downer, but there is no magical exercise. I would recommend just sit down with a song, see if you can figure out what exactly do you need to work on. And if you like once you figure that out, right, or if you maybe if you're struggling, right, find a voice teacher. Like, I think time is probably the most valuable resource you have. You'd much rather pay a bit of money, right? It does cost money to see a teacher, but see a teacher first, right? And they compress time. They just save you so much time. Imagine learning what you could in 1 year on your own in a matter of weeks. Like, that's just the kind of progress you'll see with a voice teacher. Now, tip number 3. Now, I'm keeping all these very generic because I want to make sure that you guys don't interpret it in the wrong way, because I can give the same exercise to 2 different students and they will go off and do their completely different things. One might do it really well, one might not do it. And so if you ever need like very specific feedback, reach out to me. You can DM me on Instagram at singwithivan. It's going to be a great way for me to just see what exactly is happening with your voice. Tip number 3. Okay, so this is for those of you guys who really, really want to see progress. You really want to get better. And it kind of comes back to that idea at the beginning, which was you have to put in the work to get better, right? And I think that's like a massive cliche, right? You must be like, Ivan, obviously, but you do need to put in the work to get better. And not to brag or anything, right? But I've actually, for the past 3 years, I believe, I've been able to practice 3 times a day. I've been able to practice 3 times a day. And so the reason why I do that, right, is because I don't want to do very long sessions, because I'm obviously teaching as well, but also because I think there's just so much magic in being consistent, being very consistent as a singer, right? Day in, day out, you come in, you put in your hours, and then you go do your thing, right? But I also understand that it's very tricky. It's very tricky to build in this, because what gets me up going to practice now isn't willpower. I don't have to force myself to practice anymore, but rather it's become a habit. And I think if you guys can master this, this is going to really change not only your singing, right, but your life as well. Because if you can learn to start stacking habits, it becomes a lot easier to pick up a new discipline. And what I mean by this is, say, ask yourself, like, well, what is one thing that you do every single day? Like, without a doubt, you're going to do it every single day. For me, it was waking up. I always wake up, right? I mean, you kind of have to go to sleep and then you wake up, right? And so what I did was, as soon as I wake up, right, within 30 minutes, I go and practice, right? After I've obviously brushed my teeth, because it's kind of gross to not have brushed your teeth. But after I've brushed my teeth, after I've done like the kind of usual thing, right, I'll go practice. No matter how phlegmy my voice is, no matter how tight I'm feeling or groggy I'm feeling that day, but I will make sure to go and practice. And this kind of just became this really nice kind of little stack of habits. Wake up, practice. Wake up, practice. Wake up, practice. And what I also used to do was also stack it on to after lunch. So after lunch, practice, lunch, practice, lunch, practice. So you guys get the idea. You want to choose something that you're doing every single day. Now, for some of my students, they would go and like before they shower, or maybe after they shower, because some people will shower like every single day. I do that myself. After you shower, you go and practice. So that's another way you can do it, right? So I would say maybe write down what is one thing you do every single day, right? And see if you can assign 15 to 20 minutes of practice right after that. Because at the end of the day, like I've worked with so many people around the world. I think the guys or the girls who make the most progress are the ones who are consistent, right? And the ones who aren't willing, who are willing to put in that kind of 15 to 20 minutes. That's all you need, 15 to 20 minutes every single day. Because I'd much rather you do that 15 to 20 minutes daily versus 5 hours on a Friday night. Because we all know that cramming works. It works, right? Cramming obviously works in terms of getting to the exam, right? But after the exam, guess what? Bam, you forget everything. And so that's just not the way the brain works, right? The brain works based off nice, consistent repetition, especially if you're trying to get better. So that is tip number 3. So tip number 3, make sure you start stacking on your practice time. So if you're struggling with practicing, you want to practice all the time, but you just find that, like, say end of the week, you're like, man, I put in like maybe like tops 15 minutes this week. Then what you need to do is see if you can stack it and tie it on with another thing, something you do every single day. So that is the 3 tips, right? So number 1, like if you're just completely getting started with singing, number 1, find your spot. Gosh, find somewhere to practice, because this is all about consistency, right? If you can find a spot where you can safely practice, you can be a bit more loud if you want, you're not afraid of people judging you, that's going to really create a nice practice environment. Now, second thing, there are no magic exercises. If anyone tells you there is a magic exercise, they probably have good intentions, but they probably are doing for the clickbait. So there are no magical exercises. What you need to do, and what I suggest, is figure out what you are good at and what you need to improve on, because no one starts from the same boat. Some guys are naturally better at range. Some people are better at kind of singing on pitch. Some people have like amazing style, but they have no range, right? So you want to figure out where you are. And if you need help with that, voice teachers, like just reach out to a voice teacher. You can DM me, anyone, right? It really doesn't matter. Choose a teacher that you vibe with. And number 3, stacking your habits, because you actually need to put in work to get better, which is a no-brainer. But a lot of people just kind of ignore that. You need to get better by practicing and putting in the work. And what I suggest, stack it to something that you're already doing, because we humans are creatures of habit. We already have some habits, whether they're good or bad, and you want to see if you can tie in your singing practice with one of those habits.